Mobsters, machine guns, moral decay and doll faces. Long before colour splashed across movie screens, gangster films in black and white painted a world of grit, ambition and inevitable downfall. These films didn't just entertain, they reflected real fears the public had, real fascination with the underworld, real corruption and real men like Al Capone and Lucky Luciano. Fans of the channel will be familiar with gangster films like The Godfather and Scarface, but long before Don Corleone and Tony Montana fascinated a new generation of mob movie fanatics, the gangster genre's classic age was filled to the brim with larger-than-life characters often played by the likes of James Cagney, Humphrey Bogart and Edward G. Robinson. When it comes to mob cinema, everything builds on what came before. The likes of The Irishman and The Sopranos deconstruct the likes of Goodfellas and Casino, which in turn were looking to expose gangsters as vicious, honourless criminals, body-slamming the image of underworld figures propped up in the likes of The Godfather. Go back far enough and you'll realise why there was such a fascination to mob movies by the time The Godfather came along and changed the game. So let's take a trip back to the smoky streets of Hollywood's golden age and take a look at 7 black and white gangster films you should check out if you're new to the genre and looking to get into it. Of course, this is not an exclusive list, but it is a collection of black and white films I think are essential to the genre. I'm not going to be including film noir and cop movies, as it's pure gangster pictures we're focusing on. But I do admit there is a bit of fair overlap with these genres. You won't be seeing on this list the likes of The Maltese Falcon, Out of the Past, The Naked City, Touch of Evil, Scarlet Street or On the Waterfront. After you're done with this video, check out one over on my second channel, Cineranta Uncut, where I go through 3 films you should watch if you've never seen a black and white film before. At number 1, it's Little Caesar.
Mother of mercy. Is this the end of Rico?
Though perhaps the most dated of the films on this list, we nonetheless meet the original gangster archetype, Edward G. Robinson as Rico Bandello, better known as Little Caesar. You could make a solid argument that this film defined the structure of every rise and fall gangster story that followed, and it's widely considered the movie that kickstarted the gangster movie craze of the golden age. Rico is relentless, climbing the criminal ladder with cold ambition, going as far as to even gun down a police commissioner during a robbery. But for all his power, there's something insecure, even tragic about him. His downfall comes not just from rivals or cops, but from a friend choosing a different path, and a rare moment of humanity and vulnerability from our otherwise fearless and headstrong lead. The film's final line is one of the most quoted in gangster cinema. It's not just a death, it's an admission of fear, of loneliness, of the futility of trying to be the king of the underworld. A great irony in the film's climax scene is that of Rico being shot through a billboard featuring an advert of his old mob buddy and his girl, now dancers, who left the life to go straight. Watching it in 2025, it's solid enough I guess, if not a little on the simple side, but Robinson's powerhouse performance and the movie's influence makes it a no-brainer entry for this list. At number 2, it's The Public Enemy.
I ain't so tough.
The double punch of 1931 gave us both Little Caesar and The Public Enemy, and this one, the stronger of the two, is the one that put James Cagney and the gangster genre on the map. The Public Enemy is raw, brutal, and so powerful it even made Tony Soprano cry. Released just after Prohibition ended, it held up a mirror to a society that had let crime flourish during the 1920s. Cagney's Tom Powers rises from street punk to feared bootlegger. But unlike later films that show the thrill of that rise, Public Enemy is about emptiness, emotional isolation, family tension, and senseless violence. The movie has a famous scene in which Cagney shoves a grapefruit into his woman's face, a scene which was actually a practical joke by the actors to lighten up the mood for the crew. But it's the gut punch ending, Tom's lifeless body dumped at his mother's door, that defines the movie's warning to all those watching it. Crime doesn't pay. It's an image so ingrained into celluloid history that even those of us who haven't seen the movie will surely be familiar with it. At number 3, it's Scarface.
Get all right, boy. Just changing the name on the door.
Just a year after the previous two films, and long before Al Pacino's coke-fueled portrayal of Tony Montana roared his way onto the screen, there was Paul Mooney's Tony Camonte, the original Scarface. Based loosely on Al Capone, this film was so controversial it was almost banned for its violence and apparent glorification of the criminal lifestyle. Directed by Howard Hawks and produced by Howard Hughes, Scarface is aggressive, fast-paced and dripping with intensity. Tom's rise is dizzying and his downfall inevitable. There's a brilliant use of visual symbolism. The letter X appears every time somebody dies, something later mimicked and homaged by Martin Scorsese in his crime film The Departed, as we discussed in another video. And the film doesn't shy away from uncomfortable topics, namely Tony's strange obsession with his sister. At number 4, it's Angels with Dirty Faces.
I suppose the dough is hot. Nobody knows that but you and me.
That's just it.
Oh, come on. Don't be such an angel.
I came across this film because of the movie Kevin McAllister watches in Home Alone. It looked pretty cool, and it was called Angels with Filthy Souls. Turns out it's not a real film, but there was a similar sounding film called Angels with Dirty Faces, so I decided to check it out. In fact, this may have been what got me into black and white gangster films in the first place. This movie floored me when I first watched it. At the heart of Angels with Dirty Faces is a question. Can a gangster die a hero? Or at least pretend to, for the sake of the next generation? James Cagney plays Rocky Sullivan, a gangster who returns to his old neighborhood and reconnects with Jerry, his childhood friend who became a priest. Like Rocky, Jerry was also a criminal in his youth, but as a kid he was able to outrun the cops after committing a crime, unlike Rocky, who was caught, arrested, and became a lifelong tough guy. The duo's bond is strained by the influence Rocky still has over the local kids, the Dead End Kids, a group of streetwise punks who idolize him. Cagney grew up in poverty and had known hoodlums as a youth, even engaged in street fighting, and as such he brought a level of authenticity to the role. The angle of kids who want to be like the local criminal and see him as an idol, and the upstanding priest who is desperate to shield the children from Rocky's influence is a fascinating one. This film is all about moral complexity. Rocky's charm is undeniable, but his sway over the kids is poisonous. The final moments, where he's asked by the priest to die like a coward, to cower and cry when he's faced with the electric chair, an idea he scoffs at, in order to break the kids' image of him, are haunting. But it happens anyway.
I don't want to die, oh, please. I don't want to die, oh, please. Oh, don't make me burn out.
Did he fake it to save their souls, to break their admiration of him, or did fear finally catch up to him? Either way, Cagney plays it masterfully. At number 5, it's the Roaring Twenties.
Look, George, it's a new kind of setup you don't understand. Guys don't go around tearing things apart like we used to. People try to build things up, and that's what Lloyd's trying to do. In this new setup, well, you and me just don't belong, that's all.
Maybe you don't. I do all right, any time, any place.
Just a year later, Cagney and Humphrey Bogart would share the screen in a sweeping epic of Prohibition-era crime. At the time, Bogey wasn't as famous as he would later become, but watching the movie now, it feels like the Al Pacino-Robert De Niro pair-up of Michael Mann's Heat, seeing these two giants play off one another. The Roaring Twenties is about just that, a decade of the land of the free gone wild, as Cagney and Bogart play World War I veterans returning from the war and attempting to make a living in Prohibition America, trying to find their place, only to get swallowed by a frustratingly crooked system and eventually turning to bootlegging rackets. There's a time capsule feel that comes along with this film. So much of it focuses on the era itself of the 1920s and subsequent years, the crash of 29 included. The montages sprinkled throughout, showing the changing and evolving of the American way of life, were a highlight, and when you top it off with the strong sense of characterization by the players, it's just a terrific film all around. I've actually got a more detailed review of this film on the channel if you're interested. The next film on my list is Key Largo.
Johnny Rocco, the gangster, Mr. Temple. The one and only Rocco.
Rocco?
What's that, Pop? I'm kind of deaf.
Rocco!
Oh. He said Rocco.
We've jumped almost 10 years now, and due to the impact of World War II, the rise of film noir, and audiences' familiarity with the gangster genre, the mob films of the 1940s were darker, more cynical, and often had more psychologically complex narratives. A great pick from the 1940 selection is the atmospheric Key Largo, one of my personal favourites from this list. A suffocating film starring Humphrey Bogart as a drifter visiting a family hotel of a killed-in-action war body, now owned by his widow, only to find that the hotel is overrun with a Chicago mobster and his crew, and the approaching hurricane means no one can leave. The gangster in question is played by Edward G. Robinson in my favourite role of his. He was electric to watch, and I think this was the closest he ever got to playing Al Capone. In fact, the character was based on Al Capone, and not to mention the cast is joined by the legendary Lauren Bacall. Robinson's Johnny Rocco is a gangster on the run, loud, cruel and overconfident, but crucially losing his grip on power. The storm outside mirrors the storm inside, a boiling cauldron of tension that threatens to explode the longer these characters are trapped with each other. It's a slow burn, but it pays off with explosive tension and a moral payoff about courage, purpose, and what it means to stand for something. The next film is White Heat.
Rated bar! Top of the world!
A year after Key Largo, in 1949, James Cagney returned to the gangster genre after a 10-year hiatus in a film that is still considered one of the all-time great crime films and a powerful character study of a brutal, paranoid gang leader with crippling migraines and a bizarre, disturbing attachment to his mother. One of my favourite scenes is when the titular character goes ballistic in a prison chow hall after learning of some tragic news. Cagney was known for his early 30s street tough guy roles, but he'd gone off to do other things, including winning an Oscar for his role in the musical Yankee Doodle Dandy. But in his return to the mob genre, he delivers something more unhinged and complex here that audiences weren't used to. He's not the smooth operator of old. He's unpredictable, dangerous, a man cracking under the weight of his own mind. The film mixes crime action with noir intensity and even elements of tragedy. That final explosive scene atop of the gas tank is not just an all-time iconic image and film line, it's a symbol of the character's entire arc, chaos, power, and inevitable destruction. So there you have it. There's an ocean of classic era gangster films out there that one could pick, from the dark, menacing and surprisingly disturbing The Big Heat to the 1959 biopic of Al Capone, featuring perhaps the most underrated depiction of Capone from the durable Rod Steiger. These aren't just old movies, they're blueprints for character, for story, for how to make crime feel like Greek tragedy. If you're new to black and white crime cinema, these films are a good place to start. If you're already a fan, let me know what your favourite black and white mob films are, and which essential films you think I've missed, down in the comments section below. Be sure to subscribe, and you can support the channel through Patreon or channel membership. Thanks for watching.